You don't check your email during the day?
Not if he's doing it right.
I had a busy day.
Well,
Exactly. I was out prawning. What do you want from me?
it's funny because I've been thinking that how do people get anything done at home when they work? Because I'm like busy all day. I had to interrupt my business to do this.
Yeah.
I think so. Oh, driving home from prawning, I saw the greatest bumper sticker of all time. It just said, "Jobs are for people who don't fish." And I was like, that's correct. I just want to be out fishing all the time. Why am I at a job?
Are the prawns on the stoop?
They're on the Barbie. The prawns are on the Barbie.
Yeah, the prawns will be on the Barbie. You
No,
live
I mean
too far away.
my prawns.
Your prawns, again, you live too far away.
Oh, I would like to purchase some prawns for my jambalaya next week.
I might be able to hook you up. Yeah. Why don't you just come out with me one day?
I thought there was an invitation, but obviously I've never been. So
I've invited you twice.
Okay, I didn't know it was a standing invite.
At least the Economist has an excuse. He was working
today.
Oh, were you not working today?
I just didn't get invited.
Well, I assumed you were working. Did I make a bad assumption?
Absolutely.
Oh, okay. Well, now I feel bad.
I love it. This is even better. We'll just keep talking, and this is our DFD for the weekend,
right? Prawning.
This is the entire show. We don't have a topic this week.
Yeah.
You're not far wrong. You're not that far off. I just haven't said the intro yet because this is basically how the show is going to go.
Yeah.
So welcome to the FI Garage, where I haven't got the thing up and I get stumped every time. You guys know that.
How's it go?
Every time.
Come on, try it. Where we unlock the I always forget if it's the roadmap first or the tools first. Where we unlock.
I thought it was give you the tools to unfold the roadmap.
It's you share the tools to improve your finances. Share the tools to improve your finances. Welcome to the Financial Independence Garage.
Okay.
Share the tools to improve your finances and unfold the roadmap to financial independence. Got it. Wow, that was a struggle today.
Good for you.
Welcome to the show.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I'm going to have to add in the first 2 minutes of banter, not the first 15 seconds. That was
it's all available on YouTube.
Uncut, unedited, raw FI Garage action.
I had to edit the accountant for the last episode.
Why would I do?
You're bashing different minority groups.
Ooh.
What? Okay, majority groups.
There we go.
Americans.
Whose round are we drinking today?
Tyler from Manitoba. No,
Tyler?
Tyrell.
Oh, Tyrell.
Sorry, Tyrell.
Okay. Sorry, Tyrell. Cheers. Thank you for the round, Tyrell. Now, the suggestion was that we go out and shop for our favorite beers.
Right.
Quick note to listeners. Some of you enjoy the beer section. Some of you not so much. I'm just giving you a heads up. This could be 5 minutes of beer section, so feel free to skip ahead. Because there's going to be three
beer section.
There's 3 different beers coming up, and there's going to be some discussion. So feel free. We won't be offended if you skip ahead. We'll give you a number in the show notes to skip past the beer part of this show. But there's also, I know there's a bunch of people out there. There's a bunch of people out there that are cracking beers that do enjoy this part of it. So we stay true to our original cause, which is drinking beers and then talking finance.
Or talking finance while drinking beers.
Yeah, exactly.
It's all part and parcel. Now, listen.
So what do you boys got?
This was such a tough one. I'll show you the picture. I had to do a pre-show beer, which is why I'm so animated, to figure out, because I bought 3 different kinds.
3? You had 3 beers before the show?
No, I had to share them with my wife. Luckily, it was happy hour, so it's
1.5 beers.
I'm feeling good.
Yeah.
The problem is,
I see that
all my favorite beers are like over 6%. It's lit. Okay, I'll start because I want to. I narrowed it down, and okay, before I actually give this away, my wife and I sat and chatted about this because that's a pretty tough call to say your favorite beer, because this is an evolution. It changes. Does it matter where you are in the world? Does it matter?
Depends on the weather.
The weather, right? So it's hard to call. But I did come up with my favorite beer.
Did you include 88 Brewing in the taste test? Because that was a tasty beer we had the other day.
Well, I remember every beer I've ever had.
No, you don't.
Can you just get on with it and tell us what the
especially the
damn
ones
beer is?
after about 6 p.m. You don't remember any of those.
We got time. It's early. It's still 5. No, so my worldwide beer is Guinness. Okay. And the reason I say that is because I do really, truly actually like Guinness. I really enjoy it. And I've had it in just about every country I've traveled to. One thing you can always find is an Irish bar in just about every country. So you can always, like, if you get somewhere, like I sat in Cusco in the Andes in Peru, and there's an Irish bar, and I tried their local beers because there's actually some microbrews up there. And I'm like, oh, I'm at an Irish bar, the highest Irish bar in the world. So better have a Guinness here, right? And I genuinely think Guinness is my favorite beer because you can get it everywhere in the world. And they had it in the Air Canada lounges. Remember when we could travel and you could get that, boys?
So you're drinking Guinness?
No, I'm not. I'm drinking.
That was the longest explanation to get to Guinness ever.
I am drinking Category 12.
And he's drinking Category 12 juicy data.
This is
a horrible start to this show. What are you doing?
It's unusual for you to be chirping me about how bad the show quality is.
You do like the hazy IPAs, don't you?
Yeah, well, see, this was part of the taste test this afternoon. And do I get to read the blurb? Because we got 5 minutes of beer chat.
Exactly.
So I'm reading the blurb, right? Okay, so problem is it's dark in the FI garage here. So this is Category 12, brewed on Vancouver Island. It is a hazy IPA that pumps in at 6.1% ABV. And it says beer worth leaving your career for. So it actually fits pretty well with our message here, boys.
Nice.
That's true.
Get drunk and get fi.
In a van down by the river. I got a story for that coming up too. This is kind of an episode all about a lot of the stories we've had. Okay. So the blurb is, we have meticulously blended 4 luscious hop varieties to squeeze the maximum possible tropical fruit juiciness out of our enormous hop additions. You'll find this naturally hazy, double dry hopped IPA to be a delicious, aromatic, fruity kick in the taste buds that will keep you coming back for more. Our team is dedicated to bringing you. That's an advertisement. I'm not reading that.
Okay.
So there you go.
That's enough out of you.
I already have some in a glass left over from upstairs.
So. Sure.
It's nice and hazy. No, let me finish. Nice and hazy. Oh, let's get that cheap glass out of the way there. Thrift store glasses are the best for Sam.
Do we have the power to mute him for the rest of this episode?
No, he's in charge.
Damn it.
Of the muting. So I'm kind of pissed off because I figured you guys would give me a hard time if I selected, something like Pill or Lucky. And then, which I wouldn't. But then in the beer store, I saw Dos Equis Double X. And if the mechanic was seriously considering Guinness, then I could have seriously considered the Dos Equis Double X. But alas, I went with Dark Matter from Hoyne.
Oh, that's always tasty.
This is good on its own or with Fat Tug.
Ah, the Rudy.
As a Rudy.
Yes. The Rudy is a very nice beverage.
So the Fat Tug is a very hoppy IPA, and you mix them together in the same glass. I just want to get this out because people aren't going to know what a Rudy is.
Yeah, absolutely. Same glass, about 50-50. You can have a light Rudy or a dark Rudy.
Yeah.
Depending on.
It sounds crazy, but it's delicious.
Sounds crazy, but it works.
Half Dark Matter, and it is a delight.
Yeah. So Dark Matter is the only beer we make, Hoyne, where we don't say on the bottle what style it is. This is for a very good reason. Even we don't know. It is more easily described by what it isn't. It's not as roasted as a stout, nor is it as sweet or high in alcohol as a porter. And don't even mention brown ale in the same breath. Like the Northern Lights, it is seductively elusive, bringing the mystery of the universe into your glass. Cheers, boys.
Nice. Cheers. All right, so I have one of my favorites also from travels back in the day. I have the Koning Ludwig Weissbier.
Oh, very nice.
This goes back to being my favorite beer because when I was 16, my brother was much older than me, and he was living in Germany. And somehow my parents allowed me to travel by myself to Germany to go meet my brother. And I spent that summer drinking this and traveling around Europe with my brother.
Not that we're condoning underage drinking at all, but
it's not underage in Europe.
That's fair. That's fair. Well, good job bringing out the Weiss beer. That's a nice one. There's quite a few over there in Europe that I've tried too that are just delicious Hefeweizen Weiss beers. I guess they're a little bit different.
Yeah, they make
not a Hef, it's a Weiss, but they're just delicious.
Yeah, the Weiss beers are amazing.
Interesting.
Definitely
how we all,
very summery.
Yeah, well, interesting how we all kind of actually picked an international type beer as well, right? Because I felt this challenge. I felt like it was a challenge, right? It's so difficult because I'm like, well, what's my favorite beer? I'm like, it's not generally the beer that I buy most frequently because that's just a beer that I enjoy the taste of. The price point is good. And I know I can get it in like every liquor store on Vancouver Island. So that doesn't make it my favorite though, right?
No.
Whereas this one, it's like 4-pack of tall cans is relatively pricey here now on the island. So I'm like, juicy data, I love it. Am I going to buy it every time I'm there? No, definitely not. It's kind of like a treat, right? So it's like, oh, I really enjoy having it. So I felt it was like a tough choice, right? And Economist, you picked a good one because Dark Matter, we have it at the curling club. You know, we'd pick up a 6-pack of that, and it's a nice budget beer that's available everywhere now on the island. Have you seen it on the mainland at all?
Yeah, it's over here on the mainland.
Nice.
Yeah.
So thanks, Tyrell. Cheers.
Yeah, cheers, Tyrell. Appreciate it.
Tyrell, cheers.
And what's awesome too is we got 3 totally different types
and colors,
and none of us would really disagree if we were in person and we passed it. You're like, okay, next beer is Dark Matter, next beer is a Weiss beer, next beer is a Juicy Data. They're all fantastic.
Yeah,
that's right. Time and place for each one, right?
Yeah.
You know the worst part, accountant, is since you and I are going down the whole brewing rabbit hole, I was picking up our ingredients today, and I my second beer, which is an honorable mention, is Squirrel Chaser from Yellow Dog Brewing over in Deep Cove, right? So of course I'm doing the pre-show sampling to try and determine which one is my favorite. My wife is the happiest person in the house right now because we have these beers for me to try and decide. And I said to her, this got a bit more of a piney note to it. I think that's the Simcoe hops in there. And she just looks at me and she's like, you're turning into a beer nerd. I only knew that because when I picked up the ingredients today, the guy's like, oh, you should check out Simcoe and Sativa. And I'm like, oh yeah. You and I have been down a YouTube rabbit hole on brewing in the last 10 days.
Yeah, there's a little too much to learn on the brewing front.
Well,
for sure.
I kind of hope that you guys step up the beer analysis game on FI Garage.
We'll work on it. I think we need to get on to non-beer topic here at some point.
But yeah, what's this show about?
Interestingly enough, not much. Okay, so we're kind of in between right now. First of all, I'd like to do a little correction, or maybe not a correction, but an acknowledgement to maybe an addendum to our ETF episode where we talked about U.S. international and emerging. I got a fantastic feedback from a listener, and they brought up that depending which funds you hold together with international and emerging, you may
developed and emerging.
You may be either omitting holdings or you may be doubling up on them.
Right.
So I just want to bring that up quickly at the beginning here. And this is kind of a hodgepodge show where we're going to talk about a bunch of different things. So stay with us. Now, the article that I was sent is a really good one. It's by, of course, none other than Justin Bender at PWL Capital. Those guys are super smart over there, and we really appreciate all the research they do, so we can sound half as smart by regurgitating it. It was basically, the title of the article is Combining International and Emerging Markets Equity ETFs. It was Economist, you and I were responsible for this section, and we kind of both dropped the ball a little bit and kind of missed this distinction because the funds that we talked about are actually in this article. So we do appreciate that shout out to correct us. And I think we should just bring it up for
not necessarily. We weren't necessarily wrong.
We weren't wrong. We just missed.
No, we just missed a major point.
Yeah.
It's not a major point. I mean, Korea's not that major, is it?
Depends. It depends how you feel about it.
Yeah, it could be major.
Samsung's a pretty big company.
They-
Hyundai's Korean as well, isn't it? There's some big industry, big
Yep.
companies. So okay, so this is the point, right? Economist, you want to fill me in here a little bit while I have wet my palate with some juice?
Fill you in about what? The point?
Okay. Yeah, the point.
Well, read the article. This point.
That's not how the show works. You got to
No?
tell them what. No, because nobody's going to go read the article.
It depends on when you're picking between developed and emerging. Different companies will decide different countries are emerging or developed. So the whole point of the article was that I think it was iShares considers Korea developed, whereas Vanguard considers it emerging, or vice versa.
Okay, just stop right there, because you're right. I just want to bring up an important point that you may or may not be getting to, is that there's two different ways the indexes are built, right? We talked about the MSCI, but we totally dropped the ball and didn't talk about the FTSE.
Which is just another company who's doing the same thing as Morgan Stanley, right?
Exactly. Yeah. But so the point is, as the accountant was saying, which you're right, is Korea, which is a big one, right? For the FTSE is considering it developed, and the MSCI is considering it emerging. And the important point to note here is that the FTSE is iShares and the MSCI is Vanguard.
So, right. So if
I like that he cuts me off
to say
while
the same
he
thing.
Asks me to do the explanation,
yeah, right.
To tell me exactly where I was going with the point.
Exactly. It's nice. And I'm gonna come in at the end with the what's the point of the whole thing is, don't mix Vanguard with BlackRock, with iShares, right? That's the crux of the whole discussion.
Oh, I can speak. Good. You're right, economist. Good point. And no, I think if you're going to mix them, understand what you're mixing.
Like, right. Maybe you want to exclude or double up on Korea.
Yeah. Who knows? But
yeah.
It was a really good point. I'm glad the listener brought it up. We do appreciate that, because we are definitely not experts, because this is for entertainment purposes only.
Who is that?
It was a listener.
Yeah, what listener?
I'm not sure if I'm allowed to divulge.
I thought we could give out first names. Was it Justin?
No, but good on. No,
Bender?
Yeah. Justin Bender's listening. Cheers.
Yeah.
Please let us know. No, anyway,
the likelihood of that is very slim.
Yeah, whatever. Anyway, good point. Good thing to understand. And that's been clarified. Moving right along. And please jump in here, because I don't want to run the show all the time. If you've got articles that you found this week that you want to talk about, boys.
I thought we got rid of in the news section like a year ago.
This isn't in the news. It's the whole episode is in the news.
We haven't told the people what the episode is. Isn't it stages of investing or something?
Yeah, I guess.
But wasn't it your idea?
Did you do any research?
What do you need research for?
Okay. Tell me
isn't it an opinion thing?
Well, it's definitely.
I know what my whole.
Sorry, you. On my end, your sound went out, so I couldn't make fun of you.
It's definitely opinion, but it's got to be based in a little bit of factual area.
Right.
I thought the whole show was me getting pissed at you for what you said in our text conversation that I completely disagree with.
Yeah.
What did you say in our text conversation when you brought up this show idea that is your show idea that you don't want to do, apparently?
Yeah, exactly. So what you said, Mr. Mechanic, is you said, I bet you there's nobody out there that just puts $1 million into VTI and calls it good. And I completely and utterly disagree with that point, because I bet you there are a ton of people out there that put all of their money into a US total market or the S&P 500 and call it a day and don't do anything else with it.
Isn't there a whole book on that?
Yes, there is.
What was that book called?
I believe it's The Simple Path to Wealth, isn't it?
Yeah, a fairly big book in the FI community, right?
Yeah.
You're sure not mistaking VTI with VTSAX, right?
Well,
I'm similar.
It's the same thing.
Pretty much the same.
A big index fund.
I'm just saying VTI because that's how you'd have to own it in Canada, because we don't have access to VTSAX.
Well, we have VUN.
It's the same.
Yeah.
VUN owns
Yeah,
VTI.
but VTI is the US dollar denoted VUN. You're pulling at straws.
He did say a US index. And then there's other people who are probably all in on a total world index, right? Like just buy the one total, what is it called?
Global, all-in-one fund.
Yeah, what's the Vanguard one called?
VEQT.
Right.
I'm glad the accountant segued into what I wanted to talk about withholding taxes and holding VTI instead of VUN.
Aren't we at like step 7 of stages of investing?
Fine. Okay. Before this goes completely sideways, you're right. I wanted to talk about stages of investing because, and all of these things that we're actually, these sideliners that we're talking about, and I do want to bring up a little about withholding taxes, is that they become important at certain parts of your journey in investment and to FI and your education, all the rest of it. So that's where I think the thought for this episode is that when you're starting off, when you're at the beginning, when you're sub 20,000, 50,000, like pick a number, it's okay, down in that 5-figure range. The most
what
important
about the 0-figure range?
The zero, the negative. It doesn't matter. Well, not negative, but 0-figure range. The point that I was trying to bring up when we were chatting earlier was that the important part is to get started, right? And keep it very simple, and keep it so that you feel confident about it and you can continue to move forwards. And if it's an all-in-one, well, I'll bring that question up later about that other all-in-one that we're going to talk about, the ESG one, but you're confident putting money into one place that's simple, that helps you move forward in your investing journey.
Or if you want to start out with your money in a bunch of places, I think it's just important to start out.
Exactly.
And that's what I regret. And I'm sure you do too, Money Mechanic.
Totally. Yeah.
You know, at one point it was like, well, what's $25 a week or something, right? Yeah. What's this pissant amount of money? If I save it, it's not going to do anything. Not going to make me rich. Well, it actually will.
Okay, but
right, it'll get you on the way.
It will.
Yeah.
But there's a big difference here, right? Is you need to understand the difference between $25 a week or a month that you want to save or that you want to invest.
Sure.
Right? You have to know the time frame of your money. If you're putting it away for 5+ years, invest it. If it's less than 5 years and you're going to need it for a particular reason, whether it's house, car, vacation, whatever cost it is, you need to protect that capital, right? So if you've made the decision that you're ready to invest, totally agree with you, economists. It's like, just get it started.
No, not if. Do make the decision that you're ready to invest.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly.
If you're at zero, make the decision as soon as possible.
My point with this starting at zero thing is keep it super simple, right? Because I think I definitely went down. Okay, I didn't know anything, right? When we moved back to Canada, I knew nothing about investing. I had money in Tangerine funds, which are mutual funds that were super easy to buy. It cost me $0. I already had some savings in Tangerine. So I was like, oh, well, I obviously should be invested, I guess. I know nothing. So I had their equivalent of their balanced fund and their growth fund, because I'm like, well, I don't know if I want growth or balanced, right? But I know I should do something. And I had those for a year and a half or so as I start learning about the investment side of it. And once I learned a bit more, I was like, you know what, maybe the TD E-Series mutual funds are better for me. I can still do those for free, and I can, get a little bit better at this. The point that's the early stages. And when people are there, I tried Wealthsimple too, a little later on when I knew more, but Wealthsimple is a great way too, to just fire your money in, it's safe, it's diversified, start the ball rolling, get in the build the habit, right? So the discussion that I wanted to have tonight is around that getting it started habit and rolling with it, and then realizing as your journey progresses, there are stages to this that you can take other turns, you can choose other things if you choose to. And the accountant's trying to pick on me because I said, how many people get to $1 million and just have ever held VEQT or VTI? You purposely tried to pick on me because you're right. There absolutely are people
Yes,
that
I
did
did.
that, and there's nothing wrong with that.
No.
Like,
So, and
Yeah,
you're right.
I-
It's
I-
different options open up to you. You don't have to take them.
No, exactly. And that's all. My whole point was that there are people who they don't want to learn anymore.
Yep.
And you'll be completely fine. If you have $1 million in VEQT or VBAL or VGROW or any of those, the iShares equivalent, whatever you want, you'll be fine.
Yeah.
And I get what you're saying is that there are different stages once you start to learn more. But my point was that not everybody wants to learn more.
And they may want to learn more in different areas. They may want to optimize their spending more. They may want to increase their income by learning more about their career or their side hustle, right? Like, it doesn't have to be investing.
Start a business.
Yeah.
Start a business, I can agree with, but economist, you lost me when you're saying the other stuff, because there's a point where optimization is done. You've got your spending in control. You're tracking it. You know
fair.
what your budget is. You can't make it better. And for a lot of people, they've got their income. That's their income. I don't want to go side hustle the extra 40 hours a week when I'm not working to try and make more money, right? I want to make smarter investing decisions along the way.
Well, but maybe somebody feels that making smarter investment decisions is going to take up 10 hours a week.
That's a good point.
Right?
Yeah.
And there are a lot of careers where you can grow the career with more time invested. So I agree with you on this optimizing your spending, but on the income side, you can totally invest more time and create more income. Many people can.
Yeah, you actually bring up a pretty interesting point there, because I think I'm definitely guilty of spending way too much time. I had a Twitter conversation today about whether technicals for individual stocks are important or not. And I think we all agree they're important, but I spent way too much time trying to learn what they are, and I still don't understand, and I still don't know if I can ever use them as a valuable metric to make a stock pick, because at the end of the day, you're picking individual stocks. So you're right. Instead of all the time I spent doing that, maybe I should have got an extra training course or, done something different that could provide more income, right?
But you didn't want to.
Yeah, I didn't want to. And that's why, again, what do we always say, right? Personal finance is personal. So good point. Accountant, what do you think?
He's pissed off. He's been pissed off since we started.
He's got his
Since I
favorite
started
beer.
chirping him right away.
He's got his favorite beer. How mad can he be?
You're saying I'm pissed off?
Yeah.
I'm not. Why would I be pissed off?
Oh,
You guys are killing me.
This was so much more fun in person. Well, accountant, what do you think about
It was. And so I think the caveat that we need to tell people is the whole show from this, we started arguing in our text conversation like we normally do. And I put an immediate halt to it. And I said, no, we need to argue on the show for once, rather than all getting to the show being in agreement.
I think it's working.
I don't want to
We'll find out.
Let's not call it an argument. I think we all have intellectual discussions where we don't have the same point.
Yes, there we go.
Okay,
I think we can just safely call it argument.
Since I instigated the text argument, I'll continue the argument on the show here, is that once you've worked hard and you've established your habit and you've got some serious investments, like we all agree that the first 100K of liquid investments is incredibly hard to do, and everybody should be super proud if they get to that number or when they get to that number. But different choices start opening up along the way. And I agree with you guys. If you're set it and forget it index investor, you can tune out of the rest of the show, basically.
Yeah, you can go back to the beer part.
You can go re-listen to the beer part.
Yeah.
My point is that my journey has, because I'm interested about this stuff and we talk about it, and there's a community that I'm involved with, the FI community online, whether it's through, Facebook, Twitter, Reddit, which I don't use, but there's people to banter with about this other than myself. And I don't want to make it sound like an echo chamber, but there's just lots to learn, and I enjoy that part of personal finance, right? So anyway, I found that as you move forward, there's a different stage that shows up, right? And one of the ones I wanted to bring up is that every time I see new investors post things about, well, what about my withholding taxes? And I've always kind of said,
So you're jumping from step 0 to step 7.
but I'm not. Well, what's in between?
Oh, I think when does when does
Waiting.
changing the way you buy foreign stocks make a legit difference? What do your foreign holdings have to be?
Well, answer me that question then.
No, you're the one who's
we answer our own questions.
Not when it comes to you did the research and I didn't.
Well, so you're just asking the question of exactly what I was getting into.
Okay. When's it become important?
I'm thinking when you've got six figures
in foreign holdings.
Yeah.
When you have six figures in total holdings, aren't there other options that open up to you before we have to get in the withholding tax?
Okay. Like?
Well, real estate investing, right? I thought you were going to go there at some point.
No, I'm sticking with market investments first. Because I think that's later on. Honestly, I think that's later on.
Okay, so if we're talking 100K in U.S. holdings, we need $350,000 in liquid holdings.
Well, you're putting words in my mouth now. I'm saying at 100K VUQT, you've got 30 to 40K in U.S. holdings, right?
Okay.
Plus, you've got.
Sure.
I'm just pulling these out of my head. I don't know what the international is, but you've probably got 10 in international or whatever it is, right?
Sure.
Let's just say you've got probably around, 75% of your holdings are international that are subject to withholding taxes.
Okay.
Can we agree on that? 75 grand?
Sure.
Right. So at some points, there's a drag on your portfolio.
Yeah.
Okay. But at what point does it matter?
I'll take that one. So let's say you have 100K USD and it's in a fund like that and it's paying you distributions of what, maybe 1.5%. So you're maybe getting, 2%, but you're getting $2,000 a year in distributions with a 15% holding tax that's not entirely optimized. I don't care.
No. Mathematically, you're right. But at what point do you start to care? At what point does your investments motivate you to optimize them for those losses?
I'm going to go ahead and say that if you're just holding index funds and you want $1 million in VEQT, never. It's not a concern for you.
So you're okay with leaving that 0.3% drag on your portfolio behind?
Yep, absolutely. Because if you're just holding VEQT, you're in it for the simplicity. You're not. I think the point that you start worrying about withholding taxes and things like that is when you're picking individual stocks and you're tailor making your portfolio a little more.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. But what's the quick math on 0.3 on
a mil?
On 3K.
A mil. 3K.
So you're willing at $1 million, at $1 million, you're willing to burn $3,000.
Yep, absolutely.
Okay, fair enough. Economist, it's not nothing.
It's not nothing. It's about $3,000.
It's not nothing.
100K.
How many times do I have to drink from that many that it's not nothing?
But at 100K, it's 300, and that's pretty close to nothing.
Well, okay, but this is where we get into the problem. I think for a lot of people, simplicity is 100% the best thing to do. I agree with you there. I'm not going to argue with that but within the FIRE community, the FI community, this community of hyper optimizers, people get into the weeds on this stuff. And if they want to, that's okay. Like, it's not nothing. There is something there to get.
Yeah.
But I agree with you guys. It's like, maybe that takes 5 hours of your time. Maybe it takes 20 hours of your time. How are you doing Norbert's Gambit to get into US dollars? How are you rebalancing your portfolio? How are you managing this?
Are there costs associated with it?
And I want to disagree with you guys in the sense that there's gains to be made and it's important if you think it's important, but I agree with you in that I haven't got there yet. I clearly don't have enough invested that I care about that little bit because my time's more valuable.
And this is the big problem that I have is I see a lot of people start focusing on things like worrying about withholding tax or a 0.2%, 0.3% drag on their portfolio. And the amount of time it's going to take you to learn how to optimize that problem. And you're not going to get rid of the drag. It's maybe you take 0.3 to 0.15 is, can you learn to invest better and get better returns? I think that's a better stage of investing to get to than worrying about the crappy, like I see so many people worried so much about withholding taxes and little things like that that don't move the needle as much as getting significantly better returns would.
I think asset allocation between registered accounts, like in RRSPs, that's a pretty simple way to do it if you're doing individual stocks.
And it's going to have a way more significant impact on your portfolio.
Right.
Way more significant.
Yeah. And because I'm dropping something for you guys to put in the show notes, and I regret ever finding this article. But it's actually, I think this is actually might be a white paper, and I don't want to admit that I read white papers, and I definitely don't want to advertise who wrote this white paper. It'll be in the show notes, but I bet most people with a couple guesses could guess what it was. And I'm just going to sum it up a little bit. It does totally talk about foreign withholding taxes, how to estimate the hidden tax drag on US and international equity ETFs. And it goes into great detail. Let me tell you, I started scanning, started reading, and it is actually really interesting. And they do a comparison of whether you're holding it in your RRSP, in a taxable account, or if it's in a TFSA or RESP. And they do some math in here. So if you really want to get into the weeds on this, by all means, please do. And then you get a better understanding of, how you can mitigate it if that's your decision, or how it all works, right? So a lot of people don't realize that if you're at the place where you're in taxable accounts now, it's okay. You can recover those withholding taxes, and you may need to restructure your portfolio depending on where you are at. And this is where the stages of the journey is kind of something that, was something that was rolling around in the back of my mind when people are thinking about optimizing this stuff. And I really want to dig into what the accountant brought up about other assets. So go ahead, let's finish off this section and then we'll grab another beer.
I was just going to say that whole optimization, in terms of people who are worrying about withholding taxes and that kind of drag, the drag that's going to be more significant to figure out is making sure you're putting distributions and interest into your tax-free savings account, that you've got eligible Canadian dividends in your taxable account, that the type of income and the type of gains you're receiving are properly allocated into the proper tax accounts is a way more significant impact on your portfolio than worrying about the international withholding taxes.
15% of 2%.
Exactly.
Like, the math is small when you do the math.
15% of 2%, or you've got a 25% tax rate as opposed to a 50% tax rate on income coming in. Like, those are way more vital to worry about.
Do you guys bring enough beer to do a 2-beer episode of your favorites?
No, but I got a tall can.
I got a flat buck ready to go.
Wicked. I'm going to the beer fridge, boys.
See you in a bit.
Ballpark. I have a ballpark idea where I'm going.
We're going to the ballpark? Can we go to the ballpark yet? I'm ready. It's been 2 years.
Oh, I'd love to go to a ballpark.
Put me in, coach.
A little corn dog?
Put me in, coach. I'm ready to play. Today.
I could so go for a ballpark corn dog. Beer behind the dugout. Come on.
Fly balls.
Flat buck.
Sounds like
completely flat.
Still flat? Wow, some idiot screwed that beer
up.
Okay.
This was our first ever all grain batch. So tastes good, no carbonation.
Tastes good, no carbonation.
Well, that's the most carbonation I've ever got, though. I have like a tiny little bit of head. Look at that.
Yeah.
You can barely see it, but it's there.
Yeah. No, it's nice. Okay. Let's finish this off, gentlemen.
Okay.
You served it up.
It's actually pretty good.
You served it up very well, accountant, right before we broke off our final discussion about withholding taxes there. And just to sum up before we move on, was if you're going to be all in on indices, and there's a thing I want to bring up at the end of the show about that, is that's your choice. That's totally fine. This is an individual journey. Pick what works for you, right? What I've experienced, and I'm not sure about you guys, but the stages of investment, the stages of the journey to FI to me is that it was a lot of hard work getting the index funds, getting the habit built. And as things start growing, you start realizing that there are other opportunities when you can take on a little more risk because you've got a nice baseline built already. You know, your index and you're safe. You've got your core portfolio, and that's a nice thing. You can start looking elsewhere. An accountant, you brought up that there may be other ways to generate higher rates of return than your typical indices. Give us a couple examples.
May I step in?
Oh, please.
Absolutely.
Tontines.
Oh, I just poured a beer.
Delicious.
That must be for Joel.
And for Kevin.
For Kevin.
Oh,
Good on you.
We're all 19 again, apparently.
Yeah.
oh, that hurt. Okay.
You got anything else, accountant, besides
Complaining.
the aforementioned?
Well, I literally just poured a fresh beer and then had to chug it. So give me a moment to recalibrate. Well, we already talked about the RRSP secret with Kevin. That's another way to do second mortgage lending that it's going to take some research and you're going to need to learn a little bit, but you're going to do better than the S&P 500 average has been for the past 80, 100 years. Real estate investing, we know you're going to get better returns there.
With sweat equity.
Not necessarily.
Sweat equity if you're going to do it right.
See, I'll disagree. I
There's
disagree. There's other ways to invest in real estate that don't involve you being a landlord.
And we'll get you the
free
returns.
landlord program.
Yeah.
We talked about that. There's also opportunity to invest in businesses without having to run the business. A lot of local small businesses need financing. They need people to back them up. And if you know enough about business, there's opportunity there to get outsized returns. Other private lending, I'm just spitballing here now entirely.
Yeah, no, and you're making a good point, though, is that we often don't look at local opportunities or opportunities that take some time to figure out. And this is where I'm talking like the stages of your investing journey is as when you're further along and have your bases covered per se, you can kind of go, all right, I have a little bit more time to learn about this investment, a little more time to research this investment. Now I can reach out to that community and have a conversation about it, because I think a lot of us, and I definitely felt it myself, at the beginning, you feel very alone and you feel like an imposter. You feel like you're not welcome into the club or the clique or the real estate investors, the private lending investors. And the nice thing about the FI community, and anybody that's listening doesn't reach out to other people in the community, it's very inclusive, and it's everybody that I've met is very willing to share. And there's some fantastic people that will teach you everything you ever wanted to know about real estate without selling you anything. And there's people that will teach you about private lending without selling you anything. And these are the kind of things that if you're interested and you want to learn more as you move forward, you can start doing some creative things. And I'm careful how I say this, because I don't want people at day one to think that this is automatically available. I think you've got to put in some hard work and some time. What do you guys think, economists?
Well, not only that, but you need capital. In a lot of these cases.
That's right.
A lot of these, yeah.
So day one, it's not an option for you.
That's right. That's why I'm saying there's stages to your journey.
Right. And we've covered stage 1 and stage 87. And now we're filling in the gaps.
Now we're filling in the gap. I think the other thing that's
what was
important
87?
What
was 87?
The Norbert's Gambit.
That's not 87. 52.
Close. It's close.
The answer is 6.
I think the other thing that's important to mention, the answer is always 6. I think the important thing to mention is that you don't ever have to leave stage 1. No,
Right.
Yeah.
if you want to throw all your money into an ETF and instead of learning more about investing, you want to learn more about gardening because that's how you like to spend your day, is you want to be in the sun in your yard having a good time, there you can still get where you're going.
It's not about getting where you're going, accountant. It's about getting there. It's about getting there. Look at you. I will call you out.
It's about the journey, not the destination.
I'm calling you out right now.
Okay.
You're like,
what?
Oh, since I'm getting into this options trading thing, I can monthly cash flow X, and it's getting me that much closer to my FI journey. And this is what this discussion is you had to spend a lot of time learning how to do that safely and, well, quote unquote, safely and properly. But
quote unquote safely.
Yeah. The point is if you're willing to put time and effort into learning about investing in general, there's so much more, and speculating, like, let's be very honest here, and risking and getting more risky with your money. The point that I really wanted to get to, boys, is that when you hit halfway to FI, let's just use the standard 1 million goal, which I think is light these days, but you're halfway. So
might be heavy.
It might
Are
be.
You too conservative?
Who knows?
Reference show number 27. But there's ways once you've built your foundation, and I think this is the line of the show, right? Is build your foundation and create that solid platform that you can work from. And then if you want like a Spire over here that is options trading, and you want a Spire over there that's real estate, like there's different ways to build once you have a solid place to build from, right? And I think that was like the thoughts that were going through my head when I was trying to think of this show, is that there's so much out there once you dig into it and really start getting it. And I agree with you guys. If you don't want to do it, you haven't listened to the show, you're just sticking with VQT or VTSAX. That's fine. But
yeah,
we know from experience, there's ways to speed up the journey by taking on different risks. And I think the argument I had with you before you get to speak is that I said, why would I tie everything up in market risk, $1 million up in market risk, when I could diversify into different asset classes and provide different income streams?
Yes, absolutely. No, and I didn't disagree with that. I disagreed with the fact that you didn't think that a bunch of people did it. But I think you're absolutely correct, is once you have, people talk about a lot of different investing that is quote unquote very risky. But it's risky, and you hear about people going broke when that's every penny they have and every penny they can't afford to lose is in it. When you have a solid foundation and your deck falls down, you still have a house.
Thank you. Your analogy is better than mine.
It's a big difference. Thank you. Yeah. Well,
What's a big difference?
It's a big difference if you have a big solid portfolio, you know what you're doing with the base of your portfolio, you know that you're going to ride market waves, and you're dabbling in private lending over here and maybe some options over here and some real estate over there. Yes, Mr. Mechanic, you don't like this?
No, I love that we're on video, because if we were in person, I would have been doing the same thing. Dabbling, I think, is the wrong term, because we've talked a lot about whether it moves the needle or not. I think a significant part of your portfolio could go into different places.
Right. You can move it to different places. Yeah.
Anonymous?
I'm still waiting for the accountant to finish his point before you interrupted him.
Yeah, he's good at interrupting us, isn't he? See,
this is his most interrupty show of all time.
I've been learning from you, economist.
Yeah, I'm just here for entertainment purposes only.
Aren't we all?
Yeah. I think we come back to this all the time, though, that you can take a flyer on things. I don't even want to say a flyer, because you're right. It's not dabbling. I have what I consider a significant chunk of assets that I trade options with.
Right.
But I know how to control the risk. I know what my downside is. I know what happens. I know what happens if the market tanks 75% and that part of my portfolio is wiped out. I have a plan for it. And that part of my portfolio is the best performing part of my portfolio. So until the day it completely blows up and dies, okay. But I also constantly pull my returns out of it and put it into safety.
But okay, great. Kudos, which is awesome. I'm not just being a dick. It's he's clearly
I'm not a
very
dick.
delayed.
Yeah.
Okay, let me restart this because I'll have to edit this all out. No, and that's perfect because you're taking a risky investment or speculation and realized gains you're putting into safety, which is building your foundation or adding to your foundation, which is important. But you've also spent some time to get there, get to that level of learning about doing that, right? And again, it comes back to we're interested in learning about these things and doing it. And I think that's kind of one of the things I was thinking about too, is that if you have interest, there's a lot out there that we don't know. We don't even know what we don't know. And if I'd said to you that getting 12% returns consistently was easy to do, you would have said 5 years ago, you've been like, not possible. Right. But we sat down,
do it.
But we sat down with Kevin and we listened to what he was doing, and he is now on his way. He's fire. He is now going to be not living in Canada for a while. And he used time to educate himself on how to use an asset class to get outsized returns within registered accounts and taxable accounts. And it just goes to show that all of us are able to do that. It's just whether we want to or not. Do we want to learn? Do we want to take a little extra risk? I personally, the reason this means something to me is because I don't want everything in the market. I want diversification. I want global diversification in the markets, and I want diversification in my assets. And if you get to $1 million in VEQT, you are not diversified in assets.
I think the other thing that's important if we're talking about your investing journey, at the start of your investing journey, it probably is a 4% rule. Maybe it's a 3.5% rule. That's totally what you can draw down on your investments. But it's not a 4% rule for me. I don't believe in that at all. I think it's probably more of a 6, 7, 8% rule on what I think I can reasonably generate from capital. And the big difference is if you need 40K to live off of and I need 40K to live off of, I've spent so many years educating myself on how to get those returns that I can have $500,000 in capital and you might need $1 million.
Well,
if it's a matter of, I'm just saying that's the numbers, right? If you both need 40K and I can generate 8% returns and you're going to rely on 4, the math still backs up 4 if you're just going to sit it in that. But if you're willing to put in the work and do the learning to figure out these other methods of getting returns, it really changes your numbers, and it changes. I mean, the whole thing at the end of the day is risk management. That's what everything is. It's risk management.
Totally. And that's personal. So this is just our opinion, and your personal risk is what it is, right? I totally agree. But I think with education.
Yeah. And I'm not trying to sound like a jackass being like, oh, I can get 6 or 7% returns, but
I think you mean jack wagon.
Correct. Jack wagon.
What do you guys think about this statement? Because as I learn more, I understand about different asset classes, investments, risks. It gives me confidence whether they're going to be okay or not. So therefore I can accept that level of risk for a higher return because I understand what the risk is. Economist, isn't that, what do you think about your journey? Is that something that as you build up, it works for you, or what do you think? I know you.
Huh? I'm a gambler.
Yeah, I know.
So I'm always willing to take on the risk.
I was going to say the exact opposite, and I was going to say that I am now more willing to take lower returns to have some foundational pieces of my portfolio, that are there to secure the blocks of that portfolio. Whereas before I would have never I wouldn't even have considered owning a bond or paying down debt.
That's interesting, and I think that's maybe not a virtue, because I'm definitely the same way, and it's what delayed my start, I would say, because I was looking for bigger chunks. So I think one of the foundational pieces to your journey is being willing to hit singles, right?
Yeah.
Get your money in the market, right? And do it as soon as possible. And, you can get rich going the other way, but also nothing can happen for a long, long time.
Yeah.
So.
No, nobody ever went broke hitting singles.
That's right.
That's how you get a great batting average.
Yep.
Right? That's how you get a great batting average. And it's your RBIs that count, not right? Because you gotta get to third base to get good. Somebody's got to get to third to get lots of RBIs, right? You know what I mean?
Listen to the
I know nothing about ball.
The terrible slow pitch player.
Wow.
Trying to do a bunch of baseball analogies. Hey, you're top half of our team, that's for sure.
Oh wow.
That's not saying much.
All right, listen, before we go, and it has been a long drawn out, I do have one more thing I wanted to bring up because it was an interesting tweet that caught my attention. And it was like, what is the deal with the Spiva? Why is nobody talking about this? Do you even guys know what the Spiva is?
I don't know the Spiva.
Nah, me neither until I clicked on the link. So the Spiva is actually
Was
really
it a virus?
You may be kept inside because of Spiva. It would only be if it was like Spiva 20 or Spiva 21.
Okay.
No, the Spiva,
Right, of course.
as always, we won't do a good descriptor on the show. We'll put it in the show notes. But I caught my eye because it was tweeted, and I did dig into it a little bit. But it's been hard. I'm going to admit it's been hard to dig into a lot online because the weather's been pretty decent, boys. I've been outside as much as possible, collecting the vitamin D because I feel like I'm involved. Anyway, the Spiva is a statistics and reports that it's basically S&P, which we all know is the S&P, and the Dow Jones. And it's another one of these third-party type places that reports on how the indices do. And you should listen to the I guess it's the CEO because he wears a bow tie every time he does a YouTube video, which I found interesting.
Only guy I want to listen to with a bow tie is Bill Nye.
That's true. Well, these guys could have it out. But anyway, the point I'm trying to get to is the tweet is how is nobody noticing this? And everybody's going to love this when I say that in Canada. Okay, let me rephrase. Spiva quick facts. Number one, over 15 years of published data surveying more than 10,000 actively managed funds. So they compare actively managed funds to the index. Okay? That's
based on past performance.
You're right. I know you like to bring that up. But the interesting part is in the last year, guess how much percentage of managed funds have outperformed the S&P TSX Composite in Canada?
70.
70% of managed funds have outperformed?
That's my guess. Otherwise, you wouldn't be asking the question.
Okay. Accountant?
2.
2 funds? 2%.
No, 2% of funds outdid the S&P in the last year.
Now, just let me qualify my answer. There's 2 reasons. 1, I don't think you'd be asking if it was a small number. And 2, strange times have let people kind of dump a bunch of cash in at the right time over the past year. So go ahead.
Well, it's funny because I changed my question midstream. You might not have noticed. The listeners might catch it, but I originally was thinking of what percentage of managed funds underperformed, but then I flipped it and said outperformed.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, good. So the number of funds that outperformed managed funds in the Canadian market was 1.37%.
Okay, so it's still nothing.
Nailed it.
Yeah.
Absolutely nailed it.
Well done.
Come on, I was right there.
But that's the same every year, isn't it?
Hey, You know how Price is Right is.
Normally it's like 5 or something, isn't it?
You know how the Price is Right works, right? You got to be
Can't
close
go
to
over.
without you can't go over.
So nobody
I was
won.
just, I was close. Whatever. You guys are the worst.
Pretty
what?
shocked.
But what's the point about the Spiva? Why do we want the Spiva? Who cares about the Spiva?
Well, I think we care as index
Sounds
investors
like,
that we're doing the right thing, but hasn't that been kind of reiterated and proven over and over and over again?
Yeah, exactly.
We're just beating a dead horse at this point.
I just hadn't come across it before. And if you want to dig into, and it's like global stats and global ETFs, and if you really want to prove to yourself that having some tilt or some this or that is going to outperform, this might be your place to go have a look. I don't know. I kind of looked at it and I was like, yeah, I got stuff to do in the garage.
Oh,
Go ahead.
that is one thing that I will mention on your outperformance topic is a lot of people will be like, well, you can't beat the market. So if the S&P 500 is averaging 8% a year, you can't beat the market. And what that means is that active managers picking stocks can't beat the market. It doesn't mean that you can't get better than an 8% return. It means that you need to go outside of the market and outside of picking stocks to do that. Because I've talked to a couple people recently who are like, well, why would I invest in real estate? Because you can't beat the market. Well, a real estate investment isn't the market.
Right. That's totally true. The other thing is that fund managers have goals that don't necessarily align with beating the market on the long term. So if you're an individual, you have a better chance of beating the market. I'm not saying you should try. I'm just saying it's a fact.
Yes, that's also true.
They're beholden to their customers.
Right.
Yes, totally. And I think, guys, honestly, it'd be the worst thing ever is like if somebody ever gave me the chance to deal with an actively managed fund, I'd be rubbing my hands together and going like, this is going to be fun.
One of everything. No, two of everything.
Two of everything.
But you become beholden to what the theme of that fund is that you're managing. You have to really dig into the industries. You have to really go down like the biggest, widest, deepest rabbit hole ever to try and make that fund outperform. And it's just it's hard because so many people rely on past performance to try and predict, and it just doesn't work. And economists, I'm glad you keep bringing that up because you're right. Past performance has does it change our expected returns?
No. And a big factor of that a lot of people don't understand is when you do really well for a lot of years, a lot of money flows into your fund, and suddenly you're not playing with $100 million. You're playing with $10 billion. And when you have $10 billion to invest, we're not talking about putting a little stake in this company and putting a little stake in that company. You're talking about buying the whole damn company. You're playing a different game. And that's a lot of these people can do what they're doing well. You move prices more, and a lot of people do what they do well at the scale they're doing it at. And the more success they have, the bigger the scale gets, and it doesn't work at a bigger scale.
Yeah, we're done.
Oh, I've got a sip left. Tontine.
Twice in one?
I guess that's the end of the show.
That's about it, boys. We'll catch you next time on the FI Garage.
Where can people
Thanks for making it a
find
4-beer episode, guys. That was real nice.
Go to YouTube, subscribe, and comment.
Boom.
See you next time.
See you next time.
Hasta la vista.
Hasta luego.